Someone disrespects you, cuts you off mid-sentence, talks down to you in front of people, doesn't return your text for 3 days on purpose. And for the rest of the day, maybe the rest of the week, it's living in your head rent-free. You're replaying it, drafting comebacks you'll never say, losing sleep over someone who probably forgot the interaction happened 5 minutes after it ended. If that sounds familiar, I want to show you how one of the most powerful men who ever lived handled this exact problem, and why his answer is almost nothing like what you'd expect. The man is Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor from 161 to 180 AD, arguably the most powerful human being on the planet at the time. He commanded legions, ruled an empire that stretched across 3 continents, and had the kind of authority where, if he wanted someone punished, they were punished. No debate, no consequences for him. And yet the private journal he kept, never meant for publication, never meant for us, is not a record of a man exercising power over people who wronged him. It's the opposite. It's a man constantly working on himself, page after page, to not react the way his position would have let him react. That journal is what we now call meditations, and one of the threads that runs through it, again and again, is this question: what do you actually do when someone disrespects you? Not what do you feel, what do you do? And his answer is one of the most quietly radical ideas in all of Stoic philosophy. Marcus starts from a place most of us skip right past. He tells himself, essentially, expect this. Expect to run into people today who are ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, difficult to deal with. Not because he's pessimistic, because he's being realistic about what a large population of imperfect humans produces. If you walk out your door expecting only kindness and fairness, you've set yourself up to be ambushed by ordinary life. So the first move isn't a reaction to disrespect, it's a mental preparation before it even happens. You already know some percentage of your day involves friction with people who see the world differently, or worse. That's not bad luck. That's just Tuesday. But here's where it gets interesting. Because Marcus doesn't stop at expect it, so don't be surprised. He goes a layer deeper. He says the person disrespecting you is doing it because they think it's good. Because in their mind, in that moment, being rude or dismissive or cutting serves some purpose for them. They're not doing evil for evil's sake. They're confused. They think this behavior gets them something: status, safety, control, relief. And because they're mistaken about what's actually good for them, Marcus argues you can't really be harmed by their confusion the way you think you can. Their disrespect is a symptom of their own error. It's not evidence about your worth. It's evidence about their understanding. Now, this is the part people misread as weakness, so let's slow down. Marcus is not saying, let people treat you badly and smile about it. He's making a much sharper distinction. The distinction between what's in your control and what isn't. Someone's words, someone's tone, someone's attempt to embarrass you, that's their action. It's already happened, or it's happening, and you don't have a lever to reach into their mind and change it. What you do have complete control over is the part that comes next, your judgment about it and your response to it. And Marcus argues, over and over in that journal, that the disrespect itself does you no damage. What actually damages you is if you let it corrupt your own character in response. If you get pulled down into pettiness, into rage, into becoming someone who mirrors the exact behavior you just got upset about. There's a phrase he comes back to that's worth sitting with. The best revenge is to not become like that. Not to not seek revenge. To not become like the person who wronged you. Because if someone disrespects you and you respond by losing your composure, insulting them back, plotting how to get even, you've done the thing that actually hurts you. You've let their bad behavior write the next chapter of your behavior. You've handed them the pen. And Marcus goes even further than just don't retaliate. He argues that the person who wrongs you, in a real sense, wrongs themselves more than they wrong you. Every time someone acts out of anger or cruelty or arrogance, they're the ones degrading their own character in front of everyone watching, including themselves. You walk away with your composure intact. They walk away having shown you and everyone else exactly who they are. That's not a consolation prize. Marcus treats it as simply true. The damage lands on the person doing the harming, not primarily on you, unless you let it. So if you strip this down to the actual mechanism, the argument isn't, don't feel anything. It's a chain of logic. Expect friction from people, because that's realistic. Understand that their disrespect comes from their own confusion about what's good, not some accurate verdict on you. Recognize that the only thing you actually control is your response. And understand that your response is the only place real damage can occur. Either to your character, if you let it corrupt you, or nowhere at all, if you don't. Let's bring this into your actual life, because this isn't abstract. Picture the coworker who talks over you in every meeting, cuts in right as you're making your point, redirects the conversation like you hadn't spoken at all. Old response. You spend the rest of the day irritated. Maybe you vent to someone. Maybe you start quietly resenting them. Maybe next meeting you talk over them just to prove a point. Marcus's framework says something different. That behavior tells you something about how that person operates. Insecure, needs to dominate airtime, maybe genuinely doesn't realize what they're doing. That's data about them. It's not a referendum on whether your idea or you mattered. Your job isn't to win the interruption war. Your job is to stay someone who can make their point clearly and calmly, regardless of what the room is doing. That's the only thing you actually control, and it's also, not coincidentally, the version of you that actually gets taken seriously over time. Or think about the friend group text where someone makes a joke at your expense, a little too sharp, gets a few laughs, and now you're deciding in real time whether to laugh along, snap back, or go quiet and stew about it later. Marcus's logic says, their need to get a laugh at your expense is about them working something out. Maybe insecurity, maybe habit, maybe just not thinking. It's not proof of anything about you. The only real risk in that moment is if you respond by becoming cutting yourself, by trying to one-up them with something meaner, because now you've spent your own character trying to win a moment that didn't deserve the investment. Same thing in dating, honestly. Someone's cold, dismissive, plays games to get a reaction out of you. The instinct is to match the energy, get distant back, or worse, escalate to prove you're not affected. Both of those hand your composure over to someone else's behavior. The steadier move, the one Marcus is actually describing, is staying exactly who you are, regardless of what they're doing, and letting that be the entire response. Not performed calm, actual calm, because you've already done the internal work of understanding their behavior isn't a verdict on you. Across every one of these scenarios, the pattern's identical. Disrespect is an invitation to react. Marcus is telling you the win isn't in accepting or rejecting that invitation loudly. It's in staying who you are, regardless of who's sending it. Now here's where people get this wrong constantly, especially online, especially in spaces that talk about Stoicism and masculinity in the same sentence. This idea gets flattened into, just don't care what anyone says, total detachment, numbness dressed up as discipline. That is not what Marcus is describing, and it's actually a pretty serious misreading. Marcus never argues for suppressing your reaction or pretending disrespect doesn't register. He argues for something much harder, actually understanding it correctly, so your response is earned, not performed.
There's a real difference between I don't feel anything when someone disrespects me, and I feel it, I register it, and I've reasoned my way to a response that doesn't let it damage who I am. The first one is avoidance. The second one is the actual discipline he spent his whole journal practicing, badly, imperfectly, over and over, because, and this matters, he wasn't naturally good at this. That's why he wrote it down. A man who found this easy wouldn't need a journal reminding himself daily. The other misapplication is using this idea as a shield to avoid ever setting a boundary. I'm just staying stoic while someone repeatedly disrespects you and you never say anything. Never remove yourself from the situation. Never protect your own standards. That's not Stoicism. That's conflict avoidance wearing a philosophy costume. Marcus held people accountable. He removed people from his circle. He made decisions. Controlling your internal reaction doesn't mean you have no external response at all. It means your external response comes from clarity instead of from wounded pride. So here's the whole idea, distilled down to one sentence. The only person who can actually damage your character is you, and disrespect is only ever a test of whether you'll hand that power away. If this kind of thinking is useful to you, this channel's built entirely around ideas like this. Real philosophy, no fluff, applied to real life. Subscribe if you want more of it.